They laughed, not in whispers, not even with the decency of discretion. It was loud, bouncing off the silver elevator walls, sharp enough to slice through his quiet dignity. One of them nudged the other, chin tilted at Marcus's faded jacket, and cracked leather shoes. "Damn, bro, man, still riding the 32 like it's Euro 6, said the taller one, white earbuds swinging as he chuckled. The other, shorter with the bleach-dyed fade, fake chuckled back. Probably still got a flip phone, too. Marcus didn't blink. He didn't flinch. He just looked up from the floor numbers glowing above them. 3rd floor, 4th, 5th. The laughter lingered like cheap cologne as they stepped out. Floor 14, Skytech Solutions. They didn't hold the door. Marcus adjusted the strap of his worn messenger bag and rode the rest of the way up in silence. Down in the lobby, the security guard barely glanced up from his tablet. "Morning, Marcus," he muttered, tone flat like a formality. Not warmth, just protocol. Marcus nodded politely, slipping out of the revolving door and into the mid-morning wind. The bus was gone now. He'd gotten off 2 blocks early, like always, not out of shame, out of habit. A few pigeons shuffled at his feet as he stopped at the corner. From here he could see the building fully, a 12-story block of polished glass and brushed steel, newer than most, busy but not booming. His name wasn't on any of the signs, not the marble tenant list in the lobby, not the leasing agreement pinned in Skytech's break room, but it was in the paperwork filed under. A different name, a small LLC registered in a sleepy out-of-state town where no one would dig too deep. Marcus didn't need the credit, just the control. And for now, control meant invisibility. He turned and headed down the street to the smaller building next. Dawser. The cafe on the ground floor smelled like warm cinnamon and old money. Inside, the barista greeted him by name, his real name. "Morning, Mr. King," she said with a genuine smile. "The usual?" Marcus smiled softly. "Please." He sat in the far corner, where the windows faced the building he owned, the building they worked in, the one where no one asked who he was, where the front desk still made him sign in like a visitor. Marcus sipped his black coffee and watched the Skytech execs scramble into Ubers, watched the junior consultants trip over their own egos and spreadsheets, watched the same bleach-fade kid who laughed in the elevator trip on the curb. He didn't smile at that. Not yet, because this was just the setup. The game hadn't started, and soon they'd find out who they'd been laughing at. Marcus returned to the building around noon, when the lobby was busiest, consultants in stiff blazers brushing past, interns with takeout orders, high heels clicking against marble tile like a metronome of entitlement. He walked in with the same quiet steps. Same bag, same soft nod to the guard who didn't bother looking up this time. "Sir, deliveries go through the service entrance," said the young woman at the front desk, without lifting her eyes from her phone. Marcus paused. "I'm not making a delivery." She gave a tight-lipped smile and gestured to the clipboard. "Then please sign in." He signed. "Marcus King." She didn't read it. As he stepped toward the elevators, he heard her whisper to her co-worker behind the desk. "Honestly, these renter consultants have zero dress code. I thought we were a tech firm, not a halfway house." The comment wasn't for him. But it didn't have to be. Floor 12. The floor wasn't Skytech's. It was quiet, almost empty. Once a startup office, now a co-working shell with ghost furniture and a single shared printer. Marcus unlocked one of the smaller suites with a keycard nobody knew existed. Inside, a clean space, sparsely furnished, just a walnut desk, a MacBook, a leather chair, and a view. His view. From here he could see down into the Skytech corner office where the bleach-fade kid, his name was Landon, liked to practice his inspirational pitches with the blinds half drawn. Marcus watched him gesture big, laugh fake, pace in a way he must have thought looked like strategy. Behind him on the glass wall, a printed calendar full of meetings. Hand one circled in red. Lease review, Friday 10 a.m. So that's what they were preparing for. They thought they'd be dealing with a stiff from the management company. Thought it was just another handshake and renewal. Thought they could demand lower rates again like they had last year, using words like market conditions and vacancy leverage. Marcus leaned back in his chair and pulled up his laptop. He'd already read their internal emails. Skytech hadn't paid the last 2 months' common area fees, trying to stall for a discount on the renewal. Bold move. For tenants who didn't. No, the building was owned outright. They didn't know this lease negotiation wasn't about money. It was about principle now. Later that afternoon, Marcus took the bus again, not because he had to, but because he always had. Even after the inheritance, even after the 6-unit flip in '09 that let him buy the warehouse in Midtown, even after this building, he liked watching people, how they judged, how they acted when they thought you had. Nothing to offer. There was something surgical about it, like watching a play unfold with everyone in costume, forgetting the audience might be someone who built the theater. A young man in a wrinkled Skytech hoodie sat across from him on the bus, probably new, nervous, clutching a manila folder and breathing like the job depended on it. Marcus leaned forward just slightly. "First week?" The kid blinked. Yeah." "How'd you know?" Marcus just smiled. "Keep your eyes open. Learn who the real power is." The bus hissed to a stop. Marcus stood. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't have to, because soon enough, everyone in that building would know exactly who Marcus King was and what he owned. Thursday. Afternoon. Skytech buzzed with nervous energy. Someone had printed a full-page headshot of the property manager they thought they'd be meeting and tacked it on the whiteboard in the glass conference room. A man named Howard Bleecker, hired by Marcus years ago as the public face of the LLC. Howard wore thick bifocals and beige suits that matched his personality, forgettable, polite, and utterly ignorable. "Bleeker's a pushover," Landon scoffed, as he threw a stress ball across the room. "We'll bully the renewal down 15%, easy. Then we ask for a 6-month rent delay. They won't want an empty unit." Tessa, the team lead, adjusted her blouse and crossed her arms. "He wouldn't even argue last year, just nodded like a mall Santa." Laughter rippled around the table. No one noticed Marcus in the reflection of the glass, just a blur across the hallway, walking silently down floor 12 with a calm in his shoulders. Upstairs in the private suite, Marcus sat with Howard, real Howard, over a short stack of folders. "You sure about this?" Howard asked, voice low. "We could just raise the rent quietly. Hit 'em with late fees." Marcus shook his head. "That's what they expect. This ain't about fees, Howard, it's about memory." Howard sighed and tapped the calendar. "They're expecting me at 10 sharp tomorrow. Want me to still show?" "No," Marcus said, folding the lease renewal into a plain grey folder. "They'll get someone else." Howard smirked. "Want to borrow my glasses?" Marcus didn't laugh. He just stared out the window again, this time at the valet drop-off where Landon's leased BMW screeched to a stop in the red zone. Friday, 9:59 a.m. The Skytech execs sat around the conference table, phones face down, all tapping nervously at their thighs. Tessa ran through a PowerPoint one last time, while Landon rehearsed his opening pressure pitch, arms folded like he already won. "Just remind them we've been here 5 years, he muttered. "Act like we've got options." At exactly 10 a.m. the door opened, but it wasn't Howard Bleecker. No grey suit, no awkward smile, no notepad. It was Marcus King. Same soft shoes, same quiet presence. But this time, he wasn't carrying a messenger bag. He was carrying their lease. Landon blinked like he couldn't place the face. Tessa opened her mouth, then closed it again. Marcus walked to the head of the table, slowly, deliberately, and laid the grey folder down. Then he looked around the room. Not at their suits, not at their nameplates, but through them. I assume, he said calmly, you've had a chance to review your payment history. Silence. A long, heavy, humbling silence. Landon finally cleared his throat. Sorry. Are you... Marcus cut him off with a nod. Marcus King, owner. Another silence. This one wasn't awkward, it was revelatory, because now the man they laughed at on the elevator, the man they assumed was an intern or a delivery driver, had taken the seat at the head of the table, and he wasn't smiling. The silence turned into something thick, like heat before a storm. Marcus didn't raise his voice, he didn't have to. He sat there, quiet as judgment, while they all tried to make sense of who was now across from them. Tessa was the first to recover. She straightened in her seat like she could posture her way back into control. Mr. King, we weren't told there'd be a change in representative. We were under the impression Mr. Bleeker would... Mr. Bleeker works for me, Marcus said flatly. This is no longer a negotiation. This is a correction. He slid the folder forward. Neat, unbothered. Inside, the new lease agreement, already signed, already notarized. Landon leaned forward to read it, his eyes skipping lines until they stopped. He choked out a nervous laugh. Wait, this has to be a mistake. You're increasing our rent by 22%? No mistake, Marcus replied. That's what the space is worth, market value plus 3 months of unpaid cam charges, which you tried to stall on, remember? He looked directly at Landon now. The emails you sent to my property manager, mocking him, calling him a desk plant with a pulse, were flagged. I read them. Landon opened his mouth, but nothing came out. And, Marcus continued calmly, your discount strategy, based on threatening to leave. Considered. Approved. I've already begun showing the space to new tenants. Tessa sat back. Wait a second. We've been here for years. We've built our presence in this space. You can't just... I can, Marcus said. Because you don't negotiate with the owner. He stood slowly, adjusting the cuffs of his jacket. Not faded, not frayed. Today, Marcus wore tailored navy wool. Quiet, clean power. You've got 30 days to vacate, he said. 60 if you choose to pay the new rate up front. Either way, the decision's not yours. He turned and walked to the door, but just before leaving, he paused and looked back. Next time you share an elevator, he said without turning around, don't laugh at the man carrying the bag. He might be carrying the building. The door clicked shut behind him. No one said a word because every single person at that table now realized the truth. They hadn't just disrespected a stranger. They disrespected the man who held the keys to everything they stood on. The memo hit inboxes within the hour. Subject line, urgent, building ownership, update, plus lease implications. The first line made hearts drop. Skytech will not be renewing our lease under current terms. By lunchtime, the office was in freefall. Tessa was pacing in her heels, already halfway through a list of commercial spaces, 3 zip codes away. Landon stood at the window, phone pressed to his ear, trying to charm a junior broker who clearly wasn't buying what he was selling. Dude, we've got brand equity on this block, Landon hissed. You don't understand. The visibility. From this building. Click. Even the interns had stopped pretending to type. One of them whispered, wait, is he really the owner? By 3 p.m., HR had issued a damage control statement. By 5 p.m., 4 employees had already emailed in their resumes to a competing firm across the street. Meanwhile, Marcus sat in a small meeting room on floor 12, sipping green tea with an older woman in a burgundy wrap dress, someone who didn't. Need introductions. Her name was Patricia Okoro, owner of a black-owned co-working firm expanding across metro hubs. She'd been looking for a downtown location for months. "This is prime," she said, looking out the window at the city skyline. "And they've got it furnished?" "Fully," Marcus nodded. "And desperate to unload it now?" Patricia grinned. "You always did know how to make room for the right people." He returned the smile, the kind that held history, just clearing out some noise. Later that evening, Marcus took the bus home. He could afford a car, a fleet even, but something about the rhythm of it grounded him, reminded him of where he came from, reminded him of every silent ride he'd taken in high school, head down, stomach empty, planning dreams in his head no one thought he was smart enough to have. At the back of the bus sat that same junior analyst from earlier, hoodie wrinkled, eyes wide, clutching a protein bar like it was currency. Marcus sat beside him, uninvited but calm. "Hey," the kid said, startled, then smiled awkwardly. You work in our building, right?" Marcus nodded. "Not anymore." The kid looked confused. "I just wanted to say," he added quickly, "I'm sorry. I heard about how they treated you. That elevator thing, it was foul." Marcus looked at him for a long beat, not angry, just studying. "You learned something today?" he asked. The kid nodded slowly. "Yeah, people show you who they are real quick when they think you can't do anything for them." Marcus leaned back. "Good. Keep that with you." And then, without another word, he stood and got off at the next stop. Upstairs, in his penthouse overlooking the city, Marcus poured a drink. He didn't toast, didn't celebrate. He just opened a leather notebook and wrote one line at the top of a fresh page. "Respect isn't given. It's recognized when it's too late." Then he closed it. Tomorrow, he'd finalize the lease with Patricia's company. But tonight, he sat in silence, not because he was alone, but because being underestimated for too long teaches you how to value your own voice, even when nobody else hears it. The next morning, Skytech was in crisis mode. Tessa looked like she hadn't slept, eyeliner smudged, voice sharp. Landon had ditched his usual arrogance for nervous sarcasm, pacing between desks like a man waiting for a miracle that never RSVPs. "No, we can't afford a relocation penalty and lose the client pipeline," he hissed into his phone. "You don't understand. They're going to ask about signage rights. If we lose that window corner, we lose face." He paused, jaw tight. "No, I don't know who the landlord is. Now some private guy, no, not an investor. It's—" He stopped mid-sentence because he saw Marcus, just walking past the glass, carrying a coffee. Calm, like he belonged there more than anyone ever had. That afternoon, Marcus met with his lawyer, a woman named Gina McLaren, razor-sharp and silk-smooth. She wore no makeup and didn't need any. Her tone alone shaved egos down to size. "I reviewed the subleases," she said, sliding a folder across the table. "They've been hosting unauthorized corporate mixers, late hours, some liquor permits they never filed for. Technically, that's a breach of your fire code agreement." Marcus didn't blink. "Let it ride for now." Gina raised an eyebrow. "You sure? That's enough to terminate immediately. I want them to watch the door close." He stood, adjusted his cuffs again. "Let them squirm a little longer." 2 floors below, Skytech tried one last Hail Mary. They requested a formal meeting. "Can we please just talk?" Tessa asked, walking up to Marcus at the lobby espresso bar, like she didn't know his name just 2 days ago. He turned slowly. "Talk?" "Yes," she rushed. "There's clearly been a misunderstanding. You're obviously a very successful building owner," he finished for her, deadpan. She swallowed. "Exactly, so maybe there's still a way to work something out." A gesture of goodwill. Marcus took a sip of his drink. Then he tilted his head. "Let me ask you something, Ms. Roth." Tessa stiffened. "Yes?" "If I came to your office wearing this same jacket, riding the bus, and sat down to interview for a job, would you hire me?" She blinked. I mean it depends on the role. He stepped forward. Calm, low voice. No, you wouldn't. You'd smile through your teeth and say, we'll be in touch. And I'd walk out, still invisible, while you laughed with your team. He let that settle in her bones, but now I own the building, and you want me to be in touch. Tessa flushed. Landon appeared behind her just in time to hear Marcus finish. Don't worry, he said smoothly. We'll call you. Upstairs, Patricia walked the space with her team, designers, photographers, branding consultants. Her people smiled as they mapped out where to place inspirational quotes and green walls, where to build community. It weird being back here so soon? One of her assistants asked. Marcus looked around the emptying office, the old logos coming down. He smiled, just a little. No, he said. Feels like it's finally mine now. Monday. Moving trucks lined the curb like silent judgment. Skytech's logo was being peeled off the glass entryway by a man with steady hands and a heat gun. One half-hung S dangled, curling as if ashamed to be the last thing left. Inside, employees hovered near packed boxes like mourners at a wake. No music, no goodbye speech, just the slow scrape of tape and muffled voices trying not to sound panicked. Tessa gave instructions with none of her former fire. Her blouse wrinkled, her tone flat. Make sure all hard drives are locked. Don't forget the file cabinets. Landon hadn't shown up since Friday. No one missed him. Upstairs, Marcus stood in the doorway of what used to be their executive strategy hub. The room was empty now, stripped down to carpet grooves and the ghost outlines of a whiteboard. Only a single chair remained, left behind in a rush. He sat in it, let the silence wrap around him. He remembered the first time he walked into this building. Years ago, wearing the same cracked shoes, carrying architectural blueprints in his bag, dreams sketched between grocery receipts. He had come as a guest of a contractor, unnoticed, unheard, but even then, he knew the weight of foundation. He knew what it meant to build something that others would one day beg to stay inside. And now the very people who had once dismissed him couldn't leave fast enough. Patricia joined him minutes later, holding 2 matcha lattes. I figured you'd be in here, she said. He took the cup. Did they sign? She grinned. Just now, first payment hits this afternoon, we move in next week. He nodded. Also, she added, I've asked our branding team to leave your name off the public documents for now. You cool with that? Marcus gave a quiet smirk. I've always been cool with that. She studied him for a moment. You ever going to take credit for this one? Publicly? He didn't answer right away. Then, no, but they'll feel it. In the lighting, in the way our people get greeted, in how no one gets laughed at for how they arrive. He stood. This time, we build it right. Back in the lobby, the receptionist, a new one hired by Patricia's team, smiled warmly as Marcus walked out. Have a great day, Mr. King. He nodded back, not because he needed validation, but because hearing his name spoken with respect, without confusion, without condescension, was its own kind of peace. Outside, he passed the last of the Skytech team loading boxes into a van. One of the interns paused, recognizing him. She didn't speak, just nodded. Marcus nodded back. Sometimes the lesson didn't need words. It was in the walk, the wait, the way the story ended on your terms, and Marcus King, the man they once mocked for taking the bus, now held the keys to the future they couldn't afford to stay in. 3 weeks later, the building looked different. The floors gleamed brighter. The front desk staff greeted everyone, with eye contact and real warmth. The security guards now held the door open for interns and executives alike. Nobody rolled their eyes at sneakers. Nobody whispered behind clipboards. Skytech's floor gone, renovated, now filled with early-stage entrepreneurs, community fund teams, and tech interns who reminded Marcus of himself at 22, Hungry, quiet, underestimated. Patricia's company, Vantage Collective, had turned it into something alive. But Marcus never stood in the spotlight. He didn't pose for ribbon cuttings or hover during walkthroughs. He watched from the edges, a man who had already proven everything he needed to. One Thursday afternoon, as the rain misted gently over the city, Marcus visited the cafe next door. The same one he used to sit in quietly and watch them laugh, at him through glass. This time he took the corner table again, but this time the barista brought him his drink before he even ordered. "Good to see you again, Mr. King," she said warmly. "Place feels different now, nicer," Marcus smiled. People just needed a reminder of what respect looks like. As he sipped, a familiar voice caught his ear. Landon drenched, suit wrinkled, pacing outside the cafe window, clearly mid-phone meltdown. "I don't know, man. I thought we had the lease. I didn't even know he was the owner. They said he was nobody, some consultant maybe." His voice cracked. He turned away from the cafe, not noticing Marcus inside, just like before. Back in the building, Patricia had installed a plaque in the lobby. Small, matte black, classy. It didn't bear Marcus's full name, just a quote he'd once written in his notebook. "Respect isn't given. It's recognized, and when it's too late." Beneath it, in simple gold letters, M. King visitors paused when they saw it. Some smiled, some stood a little straighter, but most never knew who Monsieur King was, and Marcus liked it that way. Because revenge wasn't the goal. Rebuilding the rules was. No titles, no assumptions, no mocking the quiet ones in the back of the elevator. So the next time someone rode up with scuffed shoes and a calm stare, they paused. Just in case. Because the man they'd once laughed at had changed everything, without ever raising his voice. And in the building he owned, dignity would no longer be optional.